This is retouching using content-aware fill and the clone tool in Adobe Photoshop. So when we look at something like this, you could certainly use the two main tools that everybody uses for retouching, which is the spot healing brush and the healing brush. That's not the easiest thing to do, but you could certainly grab the healing brush tool and zoom in and say Alt-click and grab the area you want to select from, and it's going to sample from that area, and you could go and fix things. You see the little X, that is where it's sampling from. That certainly would work, but there's easier ways to do this. So what I'm going to do is use content-aware fill. I'm going to grab the basic lasso tool and just draw a quick circle around what I want to fill in to get rid of and retouch. It's going to give us the marching ants of a selection. I'm going to go to Edit, Content-Aware Fill. A new dialog is going to come up, and this is what the computer thinks that it should fill it in with. If you look here, let me scroll out, this green area is what the AI has decided it should sample from. So it's going to default right here to auto, which is what it's doing. It's decided everything in green should be what we are going to use. But if we zoom in on this, we can see that it's actually duplicated some of the letters that were over here, and that's not what we want. So it's very easy to let the computer decide what it thinks, and then we can go back and change it. If you put your mouse over this, you will see that there is a minus. What we're saying is we do not want you to sample from this area right here at all. I'm getting rid of that area. And look, it has fixed it, and you see now it did not use that to make an average, and that looks a lot better. So you can, two choices here. You can either have it output to the current layer you're on, or if you don't trust that, you could put it onto a brand new layer. I'm going to put it on the current layer, and I'm going to hit OK. And you will see that it has done a pretty decent job. I'm going to Control D to get rid of my marching ants, and then let's scroll in with Alt Scroll. That looks pretty good. If you see any little problems, you can go back with your healing brush or spot healing brush tool and kind of fix any little things that you think look weird. Let's try that again. I'm going to grab the lasso tool and just give it a real simple area. Edit, Content-Aware Fill. And look, it didn't really need any help with that one. It's figured it out. Let's say OK. Great. Okay, so if we had something like this, that we were trying to get rid of all these men. If you do something like this guy, let's see what it does. And I'm going to say Edit, Content-Aware Fill. Oh, it did a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and apply that. And if we zoom in, we can see that looks really good. We might want to fix something right there. We got a little bit of a weirdness. Let's go and kind of Alt-click. That looks a little better. But when you've got an image like this, it's going to get confused when it's got a big area like this. So we've got to deal with it a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and let the computer try and do it itself. Edit, Content-Aware Fill. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's hit OK. But now let's zoom in and really see what happened. It really kind of messed up our background back here. That horizon is all screwed up. The computer did not understand it. You cannot use the healing brush tool because it would do an average of everything that's around, and it wouldn't understand. It doesn't get it. So we can't use any of those tools. We need to use the original clone tool. So what the clone stamp tool does is you can put what you want to clone, Alt, click your mouse, and it's going to give you an exact clone of that wherever you click your mouse. So you see that they drew that little dot, and you can see the plus sign. The plus sign is wherever it's going to clone. Now, if I start just dragging, do you see that the plus moves? Wherever that plus mark is what it is drawing. So let's back up. I'm going to Control Z and get rid of those. And I want to use this so that I can get an exact horizon. So I'm going to use my bracket keys to get a smaller brush. Alt, select, and I'm going to start drawing. Now the problem with this is, you can see my little plus mark, but the problem with this is the horizon is it's still messed up. So I'm going to undo that. And let's do a little bit more work here. I'm going to make a new layer. And then I'm going to draw on that layer. So if we go into the clone tool, up here you can see it's asking me where do we want to sample from. I want to sample from the current and below. Of course, the current layer has nothing on it, so it's going to sample from below. Alt-click and draw. I'm going to Alt-click again because I want this part is messed up right here. What's good about this is because we put it on a separate layer, we can transform it and move it. So if you find that your horizon is a little tilted, you can always free transform, Control-T, and then just shift it a little bit. So if your transform is not quite right, we could put a mask on it, and then white to reveal, black to conceal. So this is a better way to do this. If you've put it on a separate layer, you can control it, move it all around. In fact, we could duplicate it and have more of them. So that's a better way to deal with things. Let's take that same idea and look at something like this. What if we had a client that for whatever reason wanted to put these trees up here at the top? So we could clone the trees. Let's get our clone tool and a kind of softer brush. And let's make it bigger with the bracket keys. And I'm going to select this tree right here because I want to add more trees. But the problem here is I've got all this weird stuff on it and it's kind of strange. So I'm going to back up and do the same thing we did a minute ago. I'm going to add a new layer and I'm going to make sure it says to sample from current and below. Now I can let's grab this whole little part of the trees here. Alt-click, and I'm just going to draw them wherever. You can see my plus mark. All right, it's looking kind of weird right now, but remember, it's on a separate layer. So now we can move this layer around. We could make it bigger. Let's go ahead and put a mask on it. And white to reveal, black to conceal. And I can kind of soften this edge up and get rid of some of all this. Now, I'm not doing a super detailed job because I want you to see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. And now I can move it down. That's looking a little bit cleaner. I could duplicate it just by dragging it down to the new layer. I now have another one. And of course I can pick that one up and put it behind the first one. And you can see, oh, I see a little bit more of a mistake on there. So let's go back to that first one, which would be this one. And let's fix that mask. Just going to get rid of, there we go. So I'm masking out the mistakes of in that first one. Although it's kind of looking like clouds. It kind of looks like it's wanted to be there. Now, one problem I'm seeing is that they all kind of look the same, but thankfully it's on a separate layer, so we could transform it. We could go into Edit, Transform, and flip it so it's go in the other direction, or we could make this back one a little bit bigger. Actually, let's do that to the other one. Undo, let me do it to this one. Make this one a little bit bigger so it looks different. So this is a way, if you put your clone tool on a separate layer, you can have a lot more control about what you're cloning and how you are cloning it. So that's the basic idea of how to use the content aware fill and the clone tool.